right, shalom, shalom. Welcome to Shabbat Conversations with the Avads. I am Shad.
I'm Christina.
All righty. So today's topic we'll be discussing marital roles between men and women, and just we'll be discussing, some things that we believe when it comes to marriage, um, and just we'll see what you guys think. So I'll start off with you. What do you think are some important roles for a man in marriage? What
I
you
mean, I
think?
feel like it just depends on what roles that y'all have defined. I think that's really the biggest thing,
Hmm.
that every marriage has different defined roles, and your roles, what you see as a role for a man or for a role as a woman, has to do a lot with how you were raised. I feel like.
Hmm.
So going into a marriage, I had a lot of expectation of what I felt was the man's role or responsibility, just from seeing my parents' dynamic. But then I also
Hmm.
noticed that I have adopted new things that I see as a role for women that I wouldn't have necessarily like thought about now, like from the way that I was raised.
Yeah,
Um,
makes sense.
for instance, we kind of touched on this before, but growing up, I would have thought more so like, I mean, my parents were definitely 50-50, but it was 50-50 in a different standpoint. Like, my mom
Mm.
was stay home mom. So
Yeah.
it was like, I didn't see my daddy cleaning up or like my daddy cooking, or I didn't see that aspect of a man, but
Mm.
I knew that that was something I wanted to be a more shared role. And like I said, everybody's roles, I feel like the traditional roles, I can't say nobody, but it's not too many, quote unquote, I mean millennials.
I think we are millennials. Either that or what's Generation X? Generation X is not us, right?
We're in
It's
the,
like,
I don't know, let's Google it.
anywho, all I know is I'm a 90s baby.
Basically.
Okay? A 90s
Let's
baby.
see.
I was born the year Tupac got shot. All right? Best year known to man. That's the year when the 11s came out. That's the year when the Bulls went 72-10, right? 96 was the 96 when Nas made It Was Written.
Yeah, we're on the cusp of Generation Z and millennials because
No,
the
okay.
year is
But I say
96 and
X, that's like
97. X
80s.
is Jeremy now.
Yes, yeah. Them, yeah.
Anyway, but I consider myself a millennial because I feel like I have more experiences of millennials than I did of Z, because I had all my siblings, but the majority of my siblings are older, so
Mm-hmm.
I experienced that. Anyways, that's an aside.
Yeah.
But I feel like most millennials they haven't adopted the the traditional roles of like what we consider man and woman roles.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we have a healthy mixture of like taking the I didn't throw out the baby with the bathwater when it came to like, I wanted my husband to work. I don't want him to be a stay at home mom. I think your husband should still be your
Staying on
provider.
husband.
I mean, husband, yes.
What?
Sorry. I think my husband still needs to be a provider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are traditional like
The
things,
normal role
but it's not
that
normal.
most
You can't
women
say it's
think.
normal anymore. That's the
Yes,
crazy
I
thing.
can. This is
Normal for
just
who?
because society the way it is don't mean the biblical standards change. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Anyways, but I feel like we have had a mixture of what like is considered traditional versus non-traditional.
Yeah.
And I think that's just society has moved forward. So
Mm-hmm. I
you
also
see
think
less women
there's a
not working.
misnomer going back to the provide thing. I think there's a misnomer when it comes to provide because women also provide. They
Oh,
provide different
they
things,
provided, and they
right?
provided financially in the scriptures too. A Proverbs 31 woman was definitely a provider. So
True too. I do think that women, they provide as well. Like I said, they provide. They can provide financially. They provide with nurture, with care. Obviously, in today's society, they provide a lot as far as like taking care of household, necessities like bills and stuff like that, making sure that those things are getting paid. All of the little intricate things that men don't think about, women usually take care of. So women provide in their own little way. Because I ain't gonna lie, there's in a lot of aspects where it's like, man, what would I do without my wife? I'm sure she thinks the same way about
sure.
me. Whatever.
No, I think, but we definitely like define, and I think we butted heads in earlier in the beginning, well, even while we were dating, because I think it's important to define these roles before you date. I
Yeah.
mean, while you're dating before you get married, because
Yeah.
it's not just gonna flip at the drop of a hat. But So I kind of had to navigate while we were dating. I tried to navigate what I wanted to bring from seeing my parents and what I also wanted to incorporate because I knew our family dynamic would be slightly different. Because I don't want at this moment I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. So I was like, I cannot take on the full responsibility of like house chores, house duties, and also be working the same amount of hours. So like from that aspect, we had to adopt non-traditional. And I don't even want to keep saying non-traditional. Like I feel like men should you should know how to cook and clean too, but some men don't.
Yeah,
But
some men don't.
um, so I guess from that aspect, but I still we have trade offs. I don't want to cut the grass. I don't want to take out the trash. So
Hmm.
like it was certain traditional man things that I'm just like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's certain things that I don't really think it's any. I clean better than you, but
Yeah.
so that's just normal. But you still can clean, but I do clean better than you.
Yeah.
But you also cut the grass better than me. So.
Yeah. I do think that predominantly a man's role should be to protect his family, right? Being willing to die for his family, because in the
Mm-hmm.
scriptures, or just even in general, just even in history in general, men go to war, men fight, women stay back, right? So it's natural for a man to, protect the family from a physical standpoint, and obviously from a financial standpoint as well. That's just a universal thing that men are supposed to do, right? Whether in Eastern culture, even in Western culture, that's something that men are, looked at or looked upon to do.
I feel
How
like
should
this
I
is
say
just
it?
me. I feel like the Bible does not. If whatever
Okay.
roles you adopt is
Yeah.
that's whatever functions in your house. But I think too many times people use the Bible to try to like put a woman in her place and a woman should do this and this is what a woman should
I was
do
gonna
and
touch
this
on
is the
that.
place that a woman needs to be in and you got and you it is a
We're
certain
going there.
aspect
All
of
right.
serving your husband and like being in a like level of submission which that's biblical so that's another argument another topic but I think being a submissive wife is what the Bible asks you to be but I think people misuse that concept of
Submissive, yeah.
submission to try to down
Make
downplay
a
a
woman
woman's
second
role
class.
yeah or like she is in a place of this is
You're gonna
she just
listen what I
gotta
say,
serve
regardless of what it is. You're gonna do what I say, type stuff. Yeah.
so I think that is where people I guess try to and that's an argument people try to use against the validity of the Bible depending on who you talk to
Mm-hmm.
is how oppressive the Bible can be to women it's like that is not at all I feel like the Bible is empowering for women me
Mm-hmm.
personally it's some very powerful women in the scriptures
We was just even last Torah portion when we looked over Exodus chapters 1 through 6, or 1 through the first verse of 6. And when we looked at those chapters, that was a point in time where Israelites, we had a lot of men that weren't, we had really no men leading. We were in captivity, we were in Egypt, and there was really no male leaders. But that was a time where we had women who were holding the fort as far as leading the charge and worshiping God and following his laws and things of that nature. And they held it down. You had the midwives who held it down. You had Moses' mother who held it down. We had Pharaoh's daughter who held it down, who went against the ways of the Egyptians and obeyed God and kept and saved so many lives through that period of when Israelites were in captivity, right?
yeah
And even though you could always go to Esther and Ruth and just different women in the scriptures
definitely
who, Deborah, who was a judge, right? So it's like there are so many powerful women in the scriptures who held it down, right? Who even had a masculine role of defending and fighting,
yeah
or just picking up the pieces. So that's why I was going back to, as far as like the male role. I think men are looked at as having to be superhero, right? We have to be able to know all things, fix all things, do everything right. And I think that that's a miss. I think that should not be put on men to do. Men, we are not superheroes. We are not.
mm-hmm.
We are not. All knowing. We don't always have everything always figured out. And so I think that when it comes to the marital roles, the things that the men are weak at, the woman can pick up the slack in, and the things that the woman is weak at, the men can pick up the slack in, no matter what it is. Because once again, when we look at the roles, we've had women that had to have like a more masculine role. We've had men who had to, kind of take a nurturing role. So, it's just all depends on your marriage, y'all dynamic, your upbringing, and your flaws, your weaknesses. And what can the other person add to your life? What can you add to your spouse's life, right? So I think that's like the biggest thing with roles is like, being willing to accommodate, your spouse's weaknesses.
Yeah.
I think
And I
that's
think
also important.
it's important too. And I don't even necessarily think it's necessarily the masculine is the right word. I think dominant would be
Okay, dominant
better,
masculine,
but
yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah.
Anyways, because I don't feel like I have masculine tendencies. I think it's just I'm very dominating sometimes, strong-willed.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call that masculine
That's what
because
I'm
just
saying.
because you're strong willed don't mean you masculine. You're just strong willed.
But that's just.
But then again, I guess some people think that as being masculine. I don't know.
But I don't think it's necessary.
But
Anyways, that's an aside. But
yeah, it
I
is.
feel like whenever you define whatever roles work for you in the marriage,
Right.
that has to be something that's agreed upon, and you can't compare that what your roles are or what y'all have defined as your roles in y'all marriage to other people have defined. Because it's been other circumstances that I see people or see friends in marriages or whatever the case is, and I see the way that the wife in that dynamic operates, and it's just like I can't see myself in that role. Like whatever role they have defined for themselves, I don't see it for myself.
Right.
Like I don't right now. I don't see myself being a stay-at-home mom
Right.
anytime soon or
Mm-hmm.
ever. But that's some people's dream, and like that is what that is completely in their head. And it is. I do enjoy serving my husband, but I also know I'm not the type of person that's about to serve him hand to foot
Yeah.
all the time. And so
Yeah.
it's just like you can do for yourself too. We do for each other. How about that? So
Yeah.
that's something that we have decided and that works for our dynamic. I think I'm a strong willed person. I feel like I'm a strong willed person. And
Mm-hmm.
is submission is an ongoing battle for me. I've grown. But submission is an ongoing battle for
I
me.
don't think so. You think submission's a battle for you?
I
Why?
mean,
Why you say that?
because I feel like
Explain. What makes you say
our conversations I feel like my way is the best way, 9 times out of 10.
that? Oh, I guess.
And it's hard for me to just be like,
Makes sense. I guess.
I'll submit to the way that I think is wrong, but
Mm.
it's not wrong. It's just different.
Different. That's true.
So that's like the biggest the reason I have to step back and let you either succeed or make a mistake. But I'm at my point of not letting back and just like sitting front seat, not in the back seat, but
Mm-hmm.
passenger because we're both equal.
Yeah.
My point in it's hard for me to sit in the passenger seat because I don't want you to make a mistake. So I'm like protecting you from making a mistake. So just let me do it.
Yeah, I understand that. And so for me, man, I think obviously it's going to be hard for any marriage to be 50-50. So I
Yeah.
think what we're getting to, how can a marriage be 50-50? Like what does a balanced relationship look like, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's not necessarily looking for 50-50. I think a balanced relationship is each person giving 100+% effort, right? Trying to accommodate flaws, like we was talking about earlier, accommodate weaknesses, and also, when you see your partner tired, or if you see your partner getting worn out, trying to step in and filling in things that are filling in roles that you don't think is necessarily your role, but like filling in certain spots to where you can take the burden off of your spouse. So I think that's also important too, being able to take the burden off of your spouse, take the burden off of your partner, because that can also help a relationship be healthy and balance things in that nature. Because each person can feel worn out. Men, we can feel mentally worn out, mentally drained, from obviously working and then trying to lead a household and maybe leading other people, right? And just the different roles of a man, being the one having to protect and having to provide, having to do all these things that can wear us out as men, right? And also obviously for women, being physically worn out and also mentally worn out for, like, having a baby and postpartum, and then, like you said, cooking and cleaning and doing all the household stuff, taking care of the little intricate bills and this and this and making sure that the budget's straight and all this kind of stuff that can wear the woman out, right? So
I
being
think I'm
yeah,
sorry. I
go
think the
ahead.
biggest thing is just not being like dead set on like this is what I traditionally have always done. This is what I'm gonna keep doing. Like that's not my role. Like I feel like that's where you have to have compromise for y'all to like work
Compromise.
because it's been times that I had to do stuff that I didn't, and not even necessarily because it had to be done. But I've only
Mm-hmm.
cut the grass once, and I'll probably never do it again. But it was just like it was just better for me at that point. I had the availability to just cut the grass, and I cut like this much of the yard. I
Right.
cut the small part of the yard, but
Facts.
it was just it. I had the availability to do it. It needs to be done. So I'm like, I'm not gonna make a big issue about it because it's like, well, I had to cut the grass this one particular time, and I could have made a big deal and be like, well, that's not my role. That's traditionally not been my role, and that's like it's not that deep. And it's been several times, probably more than even to count, where it's just like Shad realized I was studying or I was tired, and it's just easy for him to cook that night. You just did it like 2 days ago, so it's just like ways that are traditionally, we would say traditionally, you just have to compromise, and I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. Just be willing to compromise and not really care about what traditional roles look
Hmm.
like or whatever that is, because
Yeah.
every role in a house is gonna look different. So I think that's the define those roles. I think that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing. Define those roles before a marriage,
Yeah.
and you can redefine them as time go on. Because I think we definitely had to redefine roles
Yeah.
once
Come
Rue
back
came
around
into the
full
place.
circle and then just sit down and redefine stuff you need to. Yeah.
It's
For
just
sure.
all about
Because you grow and you
roles.
evolve.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, it was easy for me to go
Yeah.
without a baby, and now it's just like, no,
Yes.
we had to redefine roles. Like, okay,
It's
I
different
can't
now.
do this
Yeah.
by myself, or I can't do this. This was like, so right now, for instance, I'm the morning routine person.
And
Like,
I'm
get
the
ready,
afternoon
and that it
routine.
just that works better. And it's not always the case. Sometimes I have more free time, so I'll get ready for bed, or but I try to avoid it because Rue, I don't know, he just like going to sleep with you better. Anyways, but
Yeah.
like so that's something, and that wasn't even
The fatherly touch, man.
something that was like we sat down and did. It was just like that worked into our routine that I'll be the person getting ready for daycare. He picking him up from daycare, and that's kind of where it takes off. Like we're just that we found a balance, and so
Yeah.
I think that is really where the roles come in. It's just like what works best
Mm-hmm.
for you to keep you to be able to serve each other and help
Mm-hmm.
each other. That's really the thing. That was I
And,
feel like that's the whole point of the roles in general. These like defined roles is what is gonna make your house run
mm,
smoothly.
yep.
So
Um.
if somebody having ultra traditional roles and all they do is cook and clean, and some women find sole enjoyment off of like
Yeah.
that alone,
But a lot of
and they
some
don't
women
want to
don't.
go. Some
Mm,
women don't.
yeah.
It's some women are in between. I do find enjoyment in keeping a clean house and making sure my family is fed and happy and
All
all
that
that stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
But I also find enjoyment in my job and getting education. So it's like
Yeah.
there's a balance there, and I don't think you should feel bad. I think some women get to the point where they feel bad that they desire to work outside the house,
Mm,
and they feel like it's they're not being the best mom they can be because they work outside the house, or they're not being like the
mm-hmm.
best. It's like you just have to find a balance. I think.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, obviously, in an ideal world, I would be able to keep my child at home and also work, but
Right.
right
You
now, that's
know,
probably not the
and
case.
so that's why it's important to compromise, man. Like I said, when you see your wife is tired, man, it's okay to pick up the dishes. It's okay to cook. It's okay to clean up some stuff, right? Things that a lot of us men, are not used to doing, But it's okay to pick these things up, because you want to, obviously we can't fully ultimately be our wife's full piece, right? Obviously, only Yeshua can do that, can fulfill us fully. But us being conduits, right, being righteous vessels, us being this union is supposed to be a mirror of a divine connection with God.
Mm-hmm.
Then we should try to give peace to our spouse. We want our spouse to be
Mm-hmm.
at peace. We want our spouse to be joyful. We want our spouse to be happy. So, if you see our spouse is kind of struggling, we see our spouse is kind of feeling like, man, I'm just overwhelmed, right? And that's why communication is key too. So ladies or even men, if you're feeling overwhelmed, please don't just go around and just keeps doing stuff, and not say nothing, because that's another reason why marriages don't last, because people don't want to communicate, and then they get burnt out, and it's just like they want to dip, right? They want to leave. So communicate that you're overwhelmed. Communicate that you're frustrated, um, and that way things can change and people can pick up slack. If you need to have a board, a whiteboard of what you need to do day in, day out, do that if you need to. That way you can balance chores out or balance things out that need to be balanced, right? So that's just my advice, especially for that, to keep the roles balanced, because I feel like obviously there are general defined roles, but I think everything else other than the generalized defined roles, it can be different based upon the household.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So, what do you think about? What you say that's like the traditional or the defined woman role or female role?
Well, I think obviously the defined female role is a woman that's nurturing, a woman that takes care of the household, the one that teaches the children. Obviously, we're talking about ancient times. The one that even now, the one that is at home teaching the child and doing all of those intricate things, right? That men usually don't think about. Men were more
What do you mean?
straightforward. It's not that only women do it. I'm not going to do it at all. That's your job. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying this the general role. This is what is expected out of a woman, right? They're expected to know how to cook. They're expected to know how to clean, right? They're expected to know how to nurture a child, right? A man
I
does.
expect it with them from a man too.
That's fine, and I, I can full well accommodate in those areas. But I'm just saying this is what men expect out of a woman. Just like I asked you the question, you said what you expected, so you can't get upset when I say what I'm saying.
Anybody upset?
So,
I'm just
anyways,
saying.
so obviously we expect women to be nurturing. We expect women to take care of household things, right? Make sure the house is in order. But I don't think a submissive woman, right, just listens to what a man say, right? It's not that you're submissive to the point where I say what I say and you just do it. No, being submissive is knowing that I'm the head and I'm the leader. That's it. Men, we lead. We're supposed to lead, but just because we lead don't mean we abuse the authority, so to speak, right? Where we're domineering, we don't want to listen to our wife. We just put our foot down. We just whatever we say go. No, it's a partnership. Marriage is a partnership, right? So even though men and women have defined roles for each other, it's still a partnership, right? To where we can pick up each other's slack. Even though we have defined roles, generalized roles, right? We still should love each other enough to where I can pick up some of the roles that is defined for her and she can pick up the roles that's defined for me, right? It should be a thing where we're partners and we can discuss things and we can and when it's time to make decisions, we can sit down and agree with each other on decisions, right? We don't have to nobody no either person don't have to dominate. It doesn't have to be a dominating thing. Me leading is just me being the spiritual head. It's me being responsible for teaching my wife, teaching my kids, making sure that I'm doing the best to provide not only physically but spiritually but mentally, right? It's my job to lead in that area. It's not my job to be a dictator. That's not what a leader is, a dictator. I'm not supposed to be a dictator. I'm supposed to make sure that there's balance in the house. That's it, you know. And so, a submissive woman is not just a stepping stool. No, a submissive woman is a woman that knows who her head is, and does everything she can to support him in being the head and making sure that the balance is there in the household. That's all. If that makes sense.
Mm.
Since you're about to go off on me 2 seconds ago.
I'm about to go off on you,
Do
but
you have anything else to add about marital roles, things of that nature, before we close out? You good? Well, it's been another episode of Shabbat Conversations. I think this was a really good one. So like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell whenever you see new videos. That way, it can be in your notifications, right? So this has been Shabbat Conversations. It's been a pleasure. Shalom. We'll holla.